as we grow. My name is Rohit. I'm the co-chair for this committee. With that, I'll just hand over to principal and director comments if you want to add anything.
Well, do we get to just stay here?
Yes.
Oh, yes. That's awesome. So, let's see. We're very much in the middle of next year right now. Working through getting choices entered and figuring out what in the world we're going to have and all of that good stuff. But aside from that, just FYI, we spent this past Monday's program time having our faculty really dig into and look at our application and ask some questions about, you know, is it good the way it is? Is there anything we need to tweak, even just down to mathematics? So, you know, we do that every year. We ask questions every year, but I'm just being a little more, we're digging a little deeper this year. So we shall see what they come up with. And then, so I didn't know she was going to be in the room, but one thing that I jotted down that I wanted to share is, so I like to let you guys know some of my favorite moments in classrooms. And one of my favorite moments recently in a classroom was in this room. And so 8th grade English is doing poetry right now, and Ms. Wagner happened to kick things off by reciting Jabberwocky. And it was just one of those moments that was absolutely beautiful. One of the things I thought was most cool about it, well, first she opened with a story about her childhood, which was, I mean, I got goosebumps and all that good stuff. But one of the things I love the most is she let her kids know, hey, I might get stuck, so y'all be ready to help me. And she did have to pause, I think, once, maybe twice. And, you know, I don't know, I thought it was absolutely beautiful. And her kids in that class, and we've talked about this since then, that particular class is phenomenal. So, anyway, that was spectacular. And my other most favorite moment or moments recently was I was doing 2 observations back to back, and I went from a 6th grade science class where they were doing their sound project presentations. I went from there to a band class. So I went from one version of music to another version, and it was a beginning class, which I had flashbacks to middle school, because I haven't been in a beginning band class since middle school.
They sound tolerable at this
They
point
do.
of the year.
They do. It was pretty impressive, but I'd forgotten how much goes into the initial learning. So anyway, that's my scoop.
We're in the middle of next year. That is accurate. Scheduling and staffing. This week we survived the first round of STAR testing. The kids were great. They worked hard, as they always do. We didn't have any strange testing irregularities, which is always nice. Our 6th graders, 6th grade magnet students, had field day Tuesday. They stunk when they had but they had a really good time, so we were excited that they were able to do that. And then yesterday, I don't know how many of you, I know at least one of you chaperoned, they went to the Paramount Theater it's called Building Hope, but it's about the work that the Nobility Project is doing in Kenya. And then at the end, they got to Skype with some students from Kenya. So it was a really cool experience for all of our 6th graders. This is the 2nd year that we've done it, and Paramount is now nicely scheduling it around STAR testing time. So it's an experience we hope to continue to have for our 6th grade students. So that was pretty awesome. Our teachers, none of them threatened to quit over STAR testing, which, like, they were smiling and they were coming up with, one of our teachers came up with 10 things to do during STAR testing. Twiddling your thumbs, making patterns out of the squares on the floor. And I think they tried all of them and made it through those 2 days of testing, so that was fun. We're in the middle of planning for next year. We're in a very fortunate position. Last week, was it last week? The last PD day, we spent a lot of time just reflecting as a staff about who we are and our strengths and challenges, and it's a good place to be. So much so that right now we have 0 teacher, TA, or office staff resignations for next year. So I don't plan to be doing a whole lot of staffing. Maybe 1 or 2 who are moving into counseling, but otherwise, our team will be back next year, which we're very excited about. Hopefully I'll see some of you tonight at the CAC meeting. I'm sure you all are aware. We are constantly dealing with the challenges of education finance, nationally as a state, but specifically as Austin because of the large amount of money we send back through recapture. So though we aren't in the position that some campuses are losing students, we have too many every year. Not too many, but more who want to come every year. So we're not in that position, but there are big program cuts and big staffing cuts that are being made that are hitting every single campus. That's putting us in a position to make some hard calls. So if you want to learn more about the budgeting process and what that looks like and what positions can be touched and which ones to expect to stay, feel free to come to CAC tonight. As of now, the things that we know are impacted are our office staff will be a little bit smaller. We're still trying to figure out how it's going to impact guitar and orchestra, how we're going to make that work, but Ms. Barisic will only be here half-time next year. There's some impact to languages, specifically Chinese. That's the bulk of it. We also, the week before spring break, district-wide, got some large cuts to things like ESL. So some supports that are campus, that are district-wide that are taken away. So we're still battling through those things, but I'm confident we all are, that we'll still be able to do the amazing things that we're doing. We'll just have to figure out a way to do them differently. So you are welcome to join us tonight for a deep dive into spreadsheets.
It's exciting.
Yes. That's where we are. That's where we are. 7 weeks.
Is that right? Yeah. Are we almost down to 6?
7 weeks yesterday.
7 weeks yesterday. Okay.
Who's counting?
Yeah, I'm definitely not. I need more. I need a little bit more to get.
We lost November through February. That kind of disappeared.
Yeah. Poof.
Yeah. But good times.
Yeah.
Any questions you guys have?
Y'all are so
Sure.
A question about I see the minutes from last time and what we ended up accepting for for next year. Do we have any information about the diversity ratio?
Not yet, really. We're still in the process. We don't really have that information on our incoming kids until a little further down the line, just because it's a long story, but the way we get information electronically, we don't technically have that information just yet.
And what do we anticipate having it, and will it be?
I'm not sure when the rollover will be. Hopefully this week, but we don't know for sure. So hope next few weeks.
There's a lot of data cleanup involved,
Yeah.
a lot of tracking down information after we've made decisions. But you'll see it. We get a records request from every news outlet every year, so you'll see it soon.
Oh, it's coming.
It's coming.
I guess kind of on that same question, that those kids that are coming in from schools that typically haven't had a lot of kids, do you have that information? No. Or has it grown? More kids coming from schools that typically haven't?
Underrepresented.
This 6th grade class has students from everywhere in Austin. And that's one of the things that magnet teachers have been talking about. Like, we had to change maybe some things that we do instructionally to respond, but the kids are doing fine. You probably have heard from 7th graders who've lied about how few seats we had this year. And a lot of our 7th grade space depends on attrition from 6th graders, and we have none.
And I did actually pull the grades for the 1st through the 5th 6 weeks, 4th 6 weeks. Anyway, so I took our current 6th graders, and I took the chunk of kids who basically I looked at it and said, okay, who's here this year that wouldn't have been under the old model? And I took them and I pulled their grades, and every 6 weeks, including the semester average, is either an 89 or higher. So, and that's considering all of their courses. And yeah, so
Well, and that's great, because that hopefully will mean that
doing
those
well.
schools will continue to, you know, will continue to send kids and be more
Yeah.
diverse.
Yeah.
One thing I did mention that's coming up, y'all saw our walkout, right? Y'all read mine.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
What I didn't, we had over 500 students that day walk. So, that's a lot of kids. They did a good job doing it as appropriately as you can walk out, right? And they came back in, but we still have students who, like, we want our voices to be heard. We want to be able to do something. We're going to march to the Capitol on April 20th. And as a staff, the conversation was, I worry about when we leave the building with students, it's because we're trying to keep them safe, not because we want them to walk out. I know that we are outnumbered like 30 to 1, and there's no way we can safely walk with 500 kids to the Capitol, keep track of them, actually feel like we have the capacity to keep them safe in a crowd. Really at all, but definitely in a crowd. And I also know that that issue came up, and then we had other students coming in going, well, this is actually the thing that I'm worried about, and how do I engage in that? And this is a concern that I have. How do I engage in that? So the suggestion that came back from student leaders, some NJHS, some student council, was can we have a day where we learn how to be engaged and what that looks like. So next Friday, we have a full day of civic engagement. There are a couple of state representatives. I think the most recent confirmation yesterday was Kirk Watson, who will be here to do a town hall meeting where the kids can ask, like, these are things that we see happening. What is our role? What is your role? How can we participate? There are a lot of organizations. Humane Society is coming. League of Women Voters is coming. There's a whole series of different nonprofits and community organizations that do philanthropic work and service work. And so the students will have a day to learn. We can't vote. We can talk our parents' ears off about things that we're concerned about, but what are appropriate ways that we can serve and engage in our communities? And so next Friday, that will be happening all day. And students will be learning about what that's going to look like over the course of next week through advisory. So I wanted to make sure you guys knew that was coming too.
All right, so next item is, I know everybody wants to hear about the magnet math program here. So I would again ask Ms. Coburn and Ms. Carter to provide some details about the math program here.
Here, there's sheets.
Yeah. Our math folks made a handy dandy flow chart. I'm sure you're shocked. Math people made a flow chart. Science people do that too. But, and that's just to kind of visually represent sort of the math path. I didn't mean to rhyme that.
Yes, you did. You do it all the time.
Okay, fine. Yeah. Anyway, I'll just, while they're kind of going around, in a nutshell, you guys may or may not be aware of the fact that over the last few years there have been lots of changes and shifts of TEKS and when they're taught, which grade, all of this good stuff at the state level. And as a result, we've constantly been working on how to adjust to that and be sure that we're hitting everything that we need to hit. In addition to those changes happening, as you probably know, this year was our first year to actually blend math. And what I mean by that is we actually assessed every single one of our kids to see where the best spot was for them, regardless of program. And then they were placed based on this placement test data and teacher input, obviously, into the math course that was appropriate for them. So, you know, anytime you do something for the first time, there's always things to learn and things to look at. So, you know, there's also been a lot of talk centered around that, and a lot of I asked Patty Hill to share little tidbits, and she said we're calibrating. So I love that word. But you know, the bottom line is we are constantly working to be sure our kids are in the right spot to be challenged and successful and learning everything they need to learn. Just so you know too, this year Ms. Hill's been working on completely revamping the placement test for our current kids, not our incoming kiddos, but our current kids, to be sure that to really be able to hone in on what those gaps are that they may or may not have, so that we can adjust as needed. I can't talk all of a sudden. And one piece of that adjustment will be, right now if you go to our website, actually she may have changed it already to summer 2018 coming soon, but there will be summer assignments for some math courses. And those summer assignments are to fill those gaps. They're not just because we want kids to do math over the summer. They're intentionally made, like if a kid's skipping from 6th grade math to algebra, they're missing some of the content that would normally be taught at the 7th grade level. So we just need to be sure that they fill those gaps. So that's an example of the purpose of those summer assignments. And what else do we need to add before we start answering questions?
I think that's probably it.
Okay. I'll anticipate a question. One of the biggest questions often is, you know, my kid's an incoming 6th grader, they took this placement test, or they're going to this Saturday. How do we know? How do we know where they're going to be? If your child, I don't know how many incoming 6th grader parents do we? Okay, I thought there were several. I knew there were faces. I knew there were faces I wasn't positive about. So no. So basically, if your child scores high enough on the placement test to be recommended for algebra, then you will receive communication from our math department. And even when you receive that, you do not have to choose for your child to take algebra in the 6th grade. It's okay if they don't. In fact, quite honestly, it's very normal to not take algebra in the 6th grade. But if you receive that, that means that their mathematic abilities say they mathematically will be okay in algebra in the 6th grade. Okay? There's a whole lot more that goes into taking algebra than just mathematic ability. It's a high school course.
Maturity and organization.
Yeah.
Those are the two things. If you have a child who loves math but struggles keeping up and getting homework done and loses things, those types of skills are things that they learn as a 6th grader. So consider those when you get that letter and are making those decisions.
Can I add something to that? One thing about thinking about taking algebra in 6th grade, it also affects your next years of math, depending on where you go to high school and what you want to take, what options you have. You might not have electives 9th and 10th grade because of taking algebra in 6th grade. So you need to look further than my kids in algebra in 6th grade. And that's a thing that's coming up a lot at our high school right now.
Yeah. Good point. And in addition, another piece of the maturity factor is our algebra courses our algebra classes for 6th and 7th graders are completely flipped. And what that means is their homework is to watch a video that's doing the direct instruction. And then they come to class and actually work in groups to solve problems and figure stuff out, which is an amazing model for the majority of kids. However, there is the maturity factor of being able to watch this video at home and you know, take some notes, and then not just that, but then come to class. And for some kids, it's a big shift from sit, listen to teacher, soak it all up, have the teacher answer all of my questions. That's what they're used to, and then with this flipped model,
It's a big shift.
It is a big shift. And 9 times out of 10, the first time somebody asks a question, the teacher's response is going to be, hey, have you asked your table? Hey, have you looked yet? Hey, have you, okay? So it's a big shift, which is great the majority of the time. However, it's a tough one for some kids.
Can I add to that? So I think also tough when you flip and they haven't done it before. Some of the kids have a hard time, like you come in and you do all the problems with your table, but you think you understand because people at your table understand. And then when it comes to taking the quiz or the test, all of a sudden they're bombing things for the first time and they don't understand that they don't know how to ask questions.
The first time they're doing the problems
So
on
that's
their
just something to
own
watch for.
is that the test or the quiz.
Yeah, and so it's like, well, my table got it, so I know it, but then,
Yeah.
so that's just a matter of figuring out how to do the flip, but it's something to watch for.
There. If you're,
And is the rule, our office hours the same as they are for 6th grade, or other math, so where there's opportunity every week
yes,
to meet with the
absolutely.
teacher?
Yeah, absolutely. And then just a little bit, let me finish the 6th grade thought real fast. If your child didn't score high enough to be able to take algebra if you guys choose, then you won't necessarily get anything. And that's okay, don't be alarmed. No, we're not going to tell people how your child did on the placement test. It's irrelevant, other than data for us to put them in the right spot to be challenged and successful and learn everything they need to learn. So,
And it
Yeah.
also means that they're not kicked out or anything.
oh my gosh, no. They're good to go.
Yeah, they're good to go.
They're coming. Yeah, yes.
Is the Algebra 1 class a mixed class? Like, is it different for 6th grade and 7th graders, or 6th and 7th combined?
It has been a mixed 6-7 class. That's one of the conversations about scheduling next year is if we can make it work, we're going to try to put the 6th graders together because we realize that they're a little bit of a different animal, and it may be possible based on the number to get them all in one course. So if we can, that's something we're going to work towards, but it has been a mixed course, 6th, 7th grade.
Speaking of sort of how they come up, because I know one of my girls was in a class where she was the only one who wasn't in topics.
Mhm.
So that class was like a little further along than she was. So are you going to make sure that, you know, that if, depending on where you're coming from 6th grade math for 7th grade algebra, how they're placed together so that you don't have kids that are way up here and a kid coming in here?
That's tougher to do, but some of that we are addressing with changing the placement exam. Part of what we've been learning is when we use the placement exam that we have for incoming students, it's looking for mathematical reasoning mostly and how you think. But there are some skills that we are needing to do a better job of filling in 6th grade, and we're working on that, but also a better job of recognizing as kids move from 6th grade into 7th grade Algebra 1. So we're changing the placement exam to give us more information, and if that information will come to inform the summer assignments, but it also may come with cluster these kids if you can. We don't have that data yet, but that is a shift that we've made in the placement exam to give us more information.
So if I've got an incoming 6th grader, and if he's doesn't, or we choose not to put them in Algebra 1, are there choices otherwise, or is there placement otherwise? What's kind of in 6th grade, not algebra?
There are 2 options. There is Magnet 6th and Advanced 6th. They're both advanced. We have to give them different names because we do. But they're both advanced courses. One does move a little bit faster, so they'll jump more quickly into 7th grade skills. But both courses do hit all of 6th grade and the vast majority of 7th grade TEKS. Some students, a small cluster of students, will be recommended to do an everyday course to like fill in some gaps and get caught up. But the vast majority of students will have an every other day math class, either Magnet 6th or Advanced 6th.
And they're placed into that? Thanks.
And which one is the one that goes faster, the Magnet 6 or the Advanced 6?
Can we refrain? So part of the reason we don't send anything out to 6th graders who don't go into Algebra 1 is that we know that we deal with a pressure to be the fastest, both with the kids and with the parents. And so we really, when you get a schedule, it'll say Math 6 on it. It won't tell you which one they're in because we don't want kids or parents to feel pressure to try and get in that class when we have information that says this is the appropriate place for your student.
And we may be changing names anyway, so.
We tried fruit last year, but.
Sorry.
Which grade star do they take, irrespective of which class they are placed in, Magnet 6 or Advanced 6? Do they still take star of 6th grade?
Some take 6th, some take 7th, some take Algebra 1 in 6th grade, so it varies.
And then just FYI, on that note, our Advanced Math 7 kids, if they, in 7th grade, if they land in the 7th grade class, as opposed to algebra, then they take the 8th grade star. Because then the following year in the 8th grade, they'll take the Algebra 1 EOC. So, and every kid in algebra, regardless of grade level, takes the Algebra 1 EOC, which is one of the EOCs that is required.
It's the only math EOC required for high school graduation. Some of our kids are taking it as 6th graders.
So if our kid wasn't in algebra as a 6th graders, they took either advanced or magnet, they're taking advanced or magnet math as a 6th grader. How do we know what they're going to take as a 7th grader? Is that effectively going to be channeled based on their performance, their grades? There's not another place to test, I guess.
There is. We just give it here in class, so you don't have to bring them up on a Saturday.
Some grade, they might not.
Exactly. We use that data coupled with teacher recommendations and grades and all that good stuff to figure out the best spot the following year.
Is the majority of 6th graders that didn't take algebra 6th grade matriculated algebra, or is that sort of?
I would say, yeah, probably more do than don't, but it's fairly close to 50-50.
But that's not a choice thing, like, when they get their schedule for next year, just find out then that they've got placed in algebra.
Pretty much.
Okay.
But you can say you
You
don't want
can
it in
always
seven,
say
but
you don't,
want
yeah.
it.
You can say no.
Okay.
Yeah.
And some kids, it's, I was talking to a fellow dad whose daughter is heading off to Lhasa, and he was asking her, like, did you love Keeling, like what? And she was like, yeah, but she goes, algebra really ruined 7th grade.
Oh, wow.
She was, but she said, but I had a lot of time with you, Dad.
Doing math. Go see the whiteboard.
She did a lot of extracurriculars, she was on the soccer team, she did, a lot of things, and she just said,
So you'll see that recommendation as your student moves up the grades. 7th grade is different, and there's a lot to consider. It's the year where you can compete in athletics. So if you're going into Algebra 1, starting a new language, doing athletics, and fine arts, it's a big difference between 6th grade, and so all of the things that your child is interested in should be talked about when you're making that decision, because we do want them to be full people who also sleep regularly. So that conversation comes when you're moving into 7th grade.
Can you give, I have 2 questions. Can you give kind of a percentage of how many incoming 6th graders typically go into algebra, just to give a sense? Because parents that are in 5th grade, but it's not a large number, right?
It's less than 10%.
Less than 10%. So you get a feeling for, it's not just my kid that's not in algebra, it's
Oh, goodness.
the majority of kids in algebra.
Yeah.
The second question I have is, can you say something about, I can't remember if it's a TEA thing or what, but how many, high schools require you to take 4 years of math in high school, right? Or is that just?
No, that's
Is
just
it- is it
LASA.
just
That's
Just
not
high
like,
school specific?
it's, because
Okay.
GUI
No, that's the
doesn't
only one.
require 4. I think they require
I
up
didn't know
to a
that.
certain year, and then I believe when we
So-
did it, that's what it was.
But that's a consideration regardless of what high school you go to. You need to know those rules of, you think you're getting on a fast track if you get them, I'm gonna get them done sooner, right? If you start earlier, you might not
Yeah,
necessarily be getting done
yeah,
sooner.
it depends. And my daughter, what Geetha was talking about earlier about fast tracking math, I wish we had known earlier about not having electives in high school, because she will be starting LASA in the fall. And the way that she wanted to do math here is causing her not to have any electives in her sophomore year.
What does that mean exactly?
Because of the time that those
Because
classes
calculus,
are.
when she's gonna be taking calculus
In
in
her
10th
sophomore
grade,
year.
as a sophomore, it's double
Double
blocked, so
block.
it takes up 2
Thank you.
spots.
So she won, because in 9th grade and 10th grade, just specifically LASA, you only get 1 elective. So I wish we had known that, like when you guys are all finding out, we would have maybe gone a different route.
Just look long-term is really what the message is.
Do you think that would have changed, does that would have changed the decision making?
Not hers. Not hers, but I mean, she had to convince me. I mean, I spent a lot of time trying to talk her out of it, but she was very set on doing what she wanted to do. But she did say when we were at Choice Sheet last Saturday that she wished she had known that she wasn't going to have an elective in her 2nd year.
So, what does it mean to take Algebra 1 now for the future? I'm confused. I don't know, like, what's the math sequence all the way? Yeah, what is it until they go to college? Like, they took Algebra 1, so they skip 2, 3, blah, blah, blahs, or they won't have to do this in 9th grade and 10th grade, or?
The general sequence for a student who has Algebra 1 as a 6th grader here and goes through LASA, because they have lots of math classes, they go Algebra 1, Geometry, Algebra 2, Pre-Cal. As freshmen, we do have students who place out of Pre-Cal. Calculus and a little bit of differential equations, not much. As a sophomore, they're taking multivariable calculus, linear algebra, number theory, math for math people that no one else ever takes. And some of them have time for statistics. So your child's not missing anything if they don't have Algebra 1 in the 6th grade. There are some students who are really committed to algebra in the 7th grade because of how much math you get before your PSAT counts. Like, that's a conversation that happens. But unless you love math and might study math in college, you're fine if you don't take Algebra 1 in 6th grade. It's just a choice.
And otherwise, normally it would come naturally in what grade? Algebra 1.
On a normal pace of things, Algebra 1 is a ninth grade course.
Class.
Oh, sorry, I just
Yeah.
I'm like, you're not normal?
Oh, there's not.
That puts a lot of things in perspective, actually.
Yeah.
And I'd like to add, as a high school math teacher and a math major way back in the day, that if your kid seems like the type that wants to be a math major, that really loves that logic, that reasoning and so on, they're perfectly fine taking algebra as a 7th grader or even as an 8th grader.
Right.
They're gonna be ahead of the curve. They're gonna be in good shape going in. The real important thing is really that this is a great time to get a solid foundation in middle school level math, pre-algebra, proportional reasoning, all those things that are foundational in Algebra 1. Let's be honest.
And organization. Yes. And that's always my goal, that 6th grade was a huge learning curve for just figuring things out, and so it's, 7th grade's a lot better.
Promise?
It really is. You talk to me glass, you're out of it.
Don't worry, you won't need like a U-Haul for any projects in the 7th grade. Sorry, inside joke. Oh, man. Anything else?
Any more questions? All right, so next item is a PTA update. Nobody's here?
I was gonna say, thanks to everybody who came out for Keeling Center Stage. We don't have the final numbers, but in the 20s, we're looking at net, so, hopefully it'll help in a small way, you know.
And our staff band was amazing.
They were amazing.
That was fun.
And we thank the sponsors who really came through. Whole Earth Provision came through with $10 certificates for all the attendees, gift certificates, and plus a auction item. Word of Mouth Bakery donated all the desserts. The Thinkery gave us their space at a vastly reduced price, and it was really fun. So next year, we hope to see everybody there.
All right. So next item, I listed, we are looking, or KMAG, looking for quite a few volunteer positions. We have sign-up sheets here, and you can see there is field trip, grade 8, KMAG fundraising, which is very important position, I think, and if you are interested, you can sign and you can go through this list. I'm not going to go all through this. And the next item is...
can I just add something real quick?
Sure.
Fundraising is very important for the success of KMAG, and we really would like to find somebody for the chair for that position, for that committee. All of these are very short-term time commitments. For example, fundraising is just the month of September. We do a fundraising drive, only 4 weeks, that is it. We don't do it again the rest of the year. We don't do raffles or any of that kind of stuff or any events. All we do is a fundraising drive, and that supports our magnet program, and this school doesn't really get much additional funding, or if any, for magnet programs, so this is kind of how we fund those extra things. We have a lot of other positions in here, like this would be great if somebody who comes regularly to meetings to be able to video the meetings. The new parent receptions that you got, the incoming 6th graders will be going to, I think last weekend and this weekend. So just small time commitments, so if you guys would stop by here and sign up, that would be really great. Also, we are looking for 2 board members. I know that there have been some volunteers. And you want to talk to us after, it'd be great. Thank you.
Can I say that? I'm sorry, I forgot one very important thing. So last Saturday, we had all of our incoming 6th graders come and fill out choice sheets and the first round of math placement tests. And it's always, it's such a relief to get to that day where all of the excited faces are coming in. But as many of you know, part of the parent reception is a student panel where literally we just get kids to come in and parents fire away questions. And as always, our kids did an amazing job. And we don't prep them. We don't feed them any lines or anything. And in fact, the suspense is always killing me. And I always have a piece of paper to jot down notes for things we can work on. But anyway, it was a great day.
I want to second that. They were truly amazing. And, you know, as a parent, they gave us an insight into what the next 3 years are going to be like from the student's perspective. So it was really, really valuable, and I enjoyed it a lot.
Yeah, I'd reiterate that. They were very, very poignant, very, very honest, which was great.
I was wondering if Keeling has the capacity at, especially those informational presentation situations, if you have the earpieces and the translator available for monolingual parents. And I know there weren't many, but there were definitely 2 or 3.
Yeah, we need to work on that. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
So next item is, we need to approve minutes from our last month's meeting. I have some copies left on each table, every table. Can you go through and we can, if you agree, we can approve it. Sure.
Yeah, on the topic of like volunteering, I just wanted to say something. We have an incoming sixth grader.
Right.
And I've been engaged already here in the gardening with Miss Martin and garden class, garden club. And this Saturday, so for new kids, this Saturday there's a Monarch Fest. And it's the first one being held. And it's from 9 till noon. And there will be bird seed bombs to make, butterfly feeders. There'll be a scavenger hunt, there'll be food, there'll be all kinds of fun things going on. So I just wanted to put a little plug in for that this Saturday.
Thank you.
We'll be here with our tribes.
Yeah, I'll be here.
Maybe.
Yeah, okay, good.
I'll be there.
So let's go through the minutes. If everybody say yay, it's approved, or is anybody against this meeting minutes?
Approved.
Okay, all right. Next meeting date is May 10th, 2018, and that's the wrap up of the year. So that's our last meeting for KMAG, and I would encourage everybody to join that last meeting. Any questions before we adjourn for the day? All right. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.